Today we are talking about the second of the Mahavidyas, the second of the great mysteries of Tantra, you could say. So we talked about Kali in the first session, and she is helping us to remove our fear, especially our fear of death and our fear of impermanence, which is, well, true for everything which comes, that it also has to go. So that's where Kali is helping us. And Tara is very much related to Kali, but she is still also different. And for those who have no idea what she looks like, I'll now share the screen. So you see, Tara looks quite like Kali. She is in the same origin. She is Gauri, the consort of Shiva, which also known as Parvati, of course. And she comes as Kali, and she comes also as Tara, but we have to say, I think I did not really say that last time, that Kali is the mother of all Mahavidyas. So all Mahavidyas, in a way, they are Kali, they relate to her, only, okay, in a little different form. And so what is different here, for example, is that although Tara is still quite fierce in a way, she is not so much referring to symbols of death. No, you don't see any skulls, you don't see any blood, because she is not so much dealing with the fear of death. She is dealing with the fear that we also all have of being unhappy. This is actually a funny kind of fear, but also very important, and especially in people who have had maybe very deep depression or very strong anxiety or something. They're really like specialists in unhappiness. So they have this fear, even though they have left this depression or whatever it was, but they still have the fear that it might come back. And that in itself then starts becoming a problem. It's a little bit like people who are having a sleeping problem. After some time, the fear of not being able to sleep is the biggest fear that keeps them from sleeping. So same way, the fear of unhappiness has this tendency to make us uncertain, and that then creates that unhappiness. So happiness is also very much a matter of confidence. To know that you can be happy whenever you want is a matter of confidence. If you believe in it, then that is what will be. If you cannot believe in it, if you doubt it, then fear, anger, sadness, depression, they will come. So that is actually there where Tara leads us across the ocean of the nectar of mind, or the pond of the nectar of mind. She leads us through our troubled waters, you could say, where the water represents the element where our emotions reside. Also in Western science, the neurotransmitters which are responsible for what we feel in the level of the body, they are in the watery part of our body. They are in the blood plasma, and also, of course, in the brain fluids, in the watery part of our system, of our cells also. There, these neurotransmitters produce certain feelings, whether nice or not so nice. And so that fear which we somehow also all have, we don't need to have been very depressed to be afraid of those kinds of feelings. So then Tara is there to help us. And this image of the boat that brings us across this ocean of mind is a typical symbol of Tara, which you also see repeated in the Yantra on the other side, where Peter Weltevrede, the artist, he was using that as an element in his Vedic squares. So, yeah, that is the basic thing. And then I will show another image, because this image actually shows also the origin of Tara, or I should say one of the stories about the origin of Tara. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking maybe I should first a little bit explain also why we find so many different stories about gods and goddesses and other things in Vedic scripture, because this is a little bit confusing to our intellect, right? In one story, Tara comes for this reason, and in another story, Tara comes for another reason. You have to be consistent, we think, no? But actually, the moment that we are not talking about the absolute unmanifested truths of the self, the moment we are talking about the manifested energy and the different forms that it takes, which always change, then sure, there are always different stories. There are always different angles. Like you can say, when it's about the energy of the body, the acupuncturist will have a view, the osteopath will have a view, the massage therapist will have a view, I as a healer will have a view, and these views are all complementary. So in that way, we also have to see these stories as complementary, looking at a certain subject from different angles, and through these angles being able to explain something, which is all that we are really doing. You know, we are trying to give some explanation to something which truly is magical and quite beyond our capability to understand. You know? But so this story here of the churning of the ocean, painting made by Harish Johari, is a very, very old story. It has so many aspects, and I'm really not going to go into all that. I could fill a whole class with that, so maybe that's something for the future. But in brief, the story is that the gods and the demons, you recognize the gods as Shiva and Brahma and of course Ganesha with the elephant head, and the demons, which are on the other side of the picture, they work together to churn the ocean of milk. And the objective there is not to bring out butter, like we normally do in churning milk, but it is to bring out the Amrit, the life elixir, so that both can achieve immortality, not immorality, of course, immortality. And well, it's a whole story where the mountain Meru is brought, which is the large staff in the middle, and underneath the staff you see the turtle avatar of Vishnu, who is like providing a base for that staff so that it does not sink into the bottom of the ocean. And then a very large snake called Vasuki is used to make this mountain turn, and in that way many things come out. So the things that you see there flying around are all coming out. I'm not going to go into that, but you see, for example, the wish-fulfilling cow, and also the tree of life, and Lakshmi, and the moon, and many things come out. And ultimately, in the middle, you see the god Dhanvantari, which is the deity of Ayurveda, who comes out finally with the Amrita, the life elixir. But one thing which comes out also before the Amrit is the most deadly poison of the world. And so this threatens to disturb the whole endeavor, threatens to poison everyone, and something needs to be done. So then Gauri, the wife of Shiva, brings this poison to Shiva and helps him to swallow it. and by swallowing it, actually his throat becomes totally blue, which gives him the name Nilkant, which means blue throat. And there also Shiva gets the name Akshop, which basically means the one who is undisturbed by pleasure or pain, by the Amrit, by the elixir, or by the poison. So there Gauri becomes Tara to help Shiva to do that. This is where Tara originates in one of the stories, as I said, there are many. But she originates very clearly to help Shiva to, how should I say, deal with the poison of the world. No? Deal with the poison of the world so that your mind does not get disturbed by it. This explains what Tara is about. No? So I said last time that Kali for healers is very important, of course, because Kali deals with death and disease and deals also with the spiritual world, which then the healer can also use to help heal. But Tara definitely also is very, very important for the healer, because as I explained in some other texts also, the origin of all disease is in our emotions. An emotional imbalance then leads to other imbalances in the physical body, in the energy body, and so on, and is the origin of all our problems, actually. Even karmically, you can say it is the origin of our problems. So to keep the emotions stable, to become undisturbed by whatever happens, that is very essential. To be happy whatever happens is the objective of yoga. So in that way, Tara is important both for yogis and for healers. And she helps us to cross those troubled waters and remain undisturbed by it. So another aspect which is there then comes when we see that, as I said, the emotions, they are dominated by the water element. And the water element, which resides in second chakra, is defined by the sense of taste. It is with the tongue that we taste, and this relates to second chakra and the water element. If the tongue is totally dry, you cannot taste anything. And there also then the relationship is there between the water, the taste, and the tongue. The tongue being then the link to sound. I announced Tara as representing sound, the Mahavidya of sound. So that is actually the relationship. And so what does this relationship mean is that sound is the main way in which we can remain undisturbed by our emotions. In that way, Tara is also often translated as a star, like a savior star, like the Star of Bethlehem, you can say, which guides us through these waters or over these waters. So that sound which Tara represents has again many forms. And the most essential form of Tara is the sound of silence, the soundless sound, the original sound. So there we are bringing Tara also back to the origin of time. I explained with Kali that time is the first thing that needs to happen if something needs to change. So if we come from unmanifested to manifested and the universe starts to manifest, then time is needed. So time is the first thing that comes. And with time also life, I explained. Time is the life force itself, which brings the universe, which starts the change. And then what comes is sound. But it is the soundless sound. The name that is used for that, maybe many will not know, is nada. Nada. No? Which a little bit like the Russian nada, which means nothing, is a sound that is nothing. No? It's a soundless sound. It's like the first thing before then the actual Big Bang, you could say, comes. The Big Bang, which then in yogic terms is Om, no? Which is the original sound from which all universe got created. And then from Om, we also come to all other mantras. Om is the original mantra from which all the mantras are derived, and most mantras also start with Om. And best is also actually to end them with Om. But okay, so there starts Om as the origin of all mantra, and then mantra is the origin of all speech. And that is also very, very important. Very often people, when they need to do mantra or want to do mantra, they want to know the meaning of it. But the meaning actually that comes afterwards. And is anyhow a interpretation always. It's a little bit like with the stories I was telling about before. When you're looking for the translation of a mantra, these days, very easy, you just Google that, and you find many different interpretations. And then you're like, can nobody really tell me what this mantra means? And my answer is no, they cannot, because that's not what a mantra is. A mantra is not about the meaning. That only is second. Mantra is about sound and the effect of sound on the energy. That is the real power of the mantra. The meaning is just to make you happy about it, you know. So people, I often give some mantra here and there, you know, and then people ask me what is the meaning, and okay, I tell them something, and if they don't like it, then I tell them something else, because it has many different, you know, aspects, this meaning of something like that, you know? But the essence is in the sounds, you know? And the most original mantras, actually, they really have no meaning in the sense that they are using these bija sounds, these seed sounds, which, yeah, okay, somehow in Sanskrit they also have a meaning, but not like normal words, let's say. And so in that way, then, no, from the soundless sound through Om, through the mantras, then we come to speech. And speech is, of course, also very important when we talk about emotion. Because one of the main things with emotion is the need to express it. To need to express that emotion is very much there, and is usually also quite healing, let's say, if the emotion is negative and we can express it in talking to a friend, or in making some music or some art, or whichever way we express it. No? So there Tara actually also then relates to speech, and to the healing effect of words. No? And the healing effect of words should also not be underestimated. Like when people come here for a healing, okay, I do the rituals, but there's also a bit of a talk, of course, no? Where people explain, okay, what is the problem, and where I do my best to give some good advice. That good advice, those words also, they have a power. So ultimately then, Tara is related not just to sound, but also very much to thinking, and speaking, and listening, and reading, and you know, the whole knowledge game, no? Is also related there. But very important always to understand is that the first thing you need to do with a, let's say, unpleasant emotion is not to think about it or start talking about it. It's to go to silence. Because that anyhow will bring the most. That anyhow will really bring the divine into the game. And yeah, that is the all-powerful, no? To be able to be silent, and then the emotion will calm down, like the sea, no, will calm down. That is where Tara's main help is found. No? And in a way, this also relates to something I was discussing last time about how I try to, as a teacher and as a yogi, not claim anything like divine, not claim anything about myself. It's not just about not being attached to any of these things, which I might be able to do, or, to whatever wisdom I have, or whatever knowledge I have, or whatever power I have. It's not just about that. It's also about a particular understanding about the place of the divine and the place of the human. The divine, actually, it is always there. You cannot have a human without the divine being at the center of it. The divine itself, yes, it can exist outside of manifestation, let's say. It can exist on its own. But the human can never exist on its own. So when I think about myself, then I should not doubt the divine being there, right? Because it's always there. So dealing with our human nature is actually the most important thing. Accepting our human nature is the most important thing. The divine nature does not need to be explained or expressed even, because it is self-evident. We are all divine inside, but we are also all human. So better remain aware of that last part. I mean, I know for many people, the idea that they are divine inside is something new. So, okay, they need to think about it and talk about it maybe and so on. Yeah, sure. But at some point, when you really start realizing the relationship between the divine and the human, then this no longer is important. The divine is self-evident. There's no doubt about it. And it is there anyhow, same way in everybody. So, there's no need to talk about it. What is important is the acceptance of the human nature. And it is because of that, okay, people think I'm very humble and all that, which I explained last time is not the case. I'm just being careful not to attach to anything. And I'm also just being truthful by saying, okay, I'm human. And this is very essential. The moment manifestation happens, the divine is still there, but the human is also there, let's say. Or to put it otherwise, the imperfect also is there. That is directly linked to the fact that manifestation is there. I see you all looking at me like, what's he talking about? I'll make it more clear. If you are a man, however great, you are, you're still not a woman. So some of the good parts, let's say, of being a woman, now you don't have it, right? And vice versa, of course. So whenever you manifest, that's, let's say, great. You can manifest into something great, but it will always be imperfect. Because by manifesting as this, you will not be able to be that. You cannot be white and black at the same time. You have to choose. Or maybe you choose to be pink. And if you're pink, then you are not blue. Then whatever greatness there is in blue, you don't have it because you are pink. So in that way, the human aspect is the thing that stands in the way, right? The divine is not standing in the way in any way. It is the acceptance of our human nature which is standing in the way of the divine. So in that way, when going now back to Tara, the soundless sound is the best way to bring the divine back in the story and help you to overcome your emotional issue. It is the best way because it is the way in which the divine is there unmanifested. The moment you use a tool of the divine, which is manifested divine, you lose something. I'm not saying you can't do it, but you lose something. So for me, the most essential practice related to Tara is to be silent. And then there are many things I can refer to. There is my class on YouTube called The Sound of Silence, where I'm explaining at length how to do that. And of course, it's all about being silent inside, being able to stop mind. So once you can do that, that really is your best way. Just to hold still, maybe for 5 seconds, for 10 seconds, for however long you can, is the best way to bring those waters down and to calm down and to get out of whatever unpleasant emotion you are experiencing so strongly. But then, of course, most people are good at making noise. They are not very good at making silence. No? So then, okay, if that is the case, if the silence does not come, if we are too much disturbed, then Om. And if Om is not enough, because it's a very simple thing, very hard to hold our attention there if we are feeling disturbed, then there is hundreds, thousands of mantras to work with, and then maybe related to a particular emotion. We can use Kali for fear and Bhaira for anger. I mean, that's a whole science in a way. And then when we have done that, then we can move from that mantra to speech, meaning then again we can think about this thing. Maybe even talk about this thing, or write about it, or sing about it, or paint it, or whichever expression we have of it, so that we can bring it on a level which is having knowledge, but which also very much has aesthetic quality. And that's very beautiful also, how then they say, when Tara brings that part, she changes, and then she becomes Nil Tara. I don't have a picture of it, but Nil Tara, which means the blue Tara. And then she is also compared to Saraswati, the goddess of art. So that is the solution then, ultimately, let's say, or the end point, ultimately, after you've calmed down the emotion and brought the divine through silence, through Om, through other mantras, that then you find a way so that whatever it is there that disturbed you becomes something aesthetically acceptable for you. And then the emotion will be defeated. Because Tara very much is also there to defeat our demons, let's say, to defeat our negative emotions. And so this is the path that is described there. And that end point should also not be forgotten. Because otherwise, if you have not somehow brought it to that level where we can say, love our problem, see the beauty of it, it will probably come back in some other form maybe, or it is not totally resolved. And that is the power of artists, of course, who can take something which is maybe in itself troublesome, but they can make it in such a way that it is beautiful. Like also in a movie, which is maybe tragic and whatever, but we can still like it and see the beauty of it, because, well, if there would be no love between two people, then there would also be no pain if they have to somehow in the movie separate, these things. That is the aesthetic. Aesthetic means a balance of emotions, a harmony of emotions. In Vedic philosophy, a real work of art, let's say, it has all the emotions inside in proper proportion. So then some anger can be there, some fear can be there, but everything, in proper proportion, so that the positive emotions dominate, which is a little bit different from how art is being made these days quite a lot. Some art is very negative. So, the main power of Tara is silence, but I have said it in many other classes. At some point, it's also good to think and to find solutions, to find explanations, and even better than to make an art out of it. You know? And Harish Johari is something which so much always came through in his teachings, was so much always pointing out that the people who have brought us the Vedas, who brought us the Upanishads, who have brought us Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, all these teachings are truly artists. They are poets. They are painters also who created all the imagery around it. And they are actors also who make plays about it and theater and all that. So when his approach to teaching was also very much that at the end of the class, the students should be able to see the aesthetics of it, the beauty of it, even when, there is suffering and there is this and that about which we can complain, but the picture in its totality is still a beautiful picture. And then we can truly enjoy the lila of life as a theater, as a play, as something which is there, for our enjoyment, and which needs a little bit of black and white and all different colors in between, to be truly beautiful. Because manifestation will always be imperfect. We expect perfection somehow. The worst mistake we can make is to expect perfection from ourselves. But we are human. We are manifested. We cannot be. Actually, whatever we are, at whichever point in time, that is the perfect. But it changes in every time. So then it seems not so perfect. Actually, it is in every second. Perfection is there. Beauty is there. Art is there. Aesthetics is there. As long as we can remain this distance, if we can remain a little bit in a distance, keep our heart of hearts out of it, be in the witness position, and be somehow also a little bit silent, and in that way connected to Tara. So the ultimate fear that Tara is dealing with is our fear of emotional disturbance, of unhappiness. And the wisdom that she brings us is that the silence is the main power of sound. And this also very much relates to how people are when they are disturbed. When people are disturbed, they're always into the questioning mode, right? Why is this happening? And when will it end? And what should I do? These are the questions. So we go from questions to silence, and then we come from silence to sound, which means, okay, then the answers will come. This silence inside is the biggest inspiration. If you want to develop intuition, you just have to develop silence. And then intuition will come. And you will know. You will truly know. And so that power of sound, or that power of silence, it is eternal. It started at creation. Still it can be heard. And it will be heard till all, end of time. Or all the time, or how you call about eternal things. It's a bit hard to talk. But so that is the second Mahavidya. And it just puts so much emphasis on meditation, silence, and also on mantra. Tara is named Mantra Shakti. She is the power of mantra. And so that power is there. And well, I think you people are already knowing me sometime, so you are somehow, I think, using the power of mantra. But still, many people, they feel mantras, they are religious, they are old-fashioned, somehow they should just be able to be silent and happy, without all these things. And sure, if you are quite balanced, then that is possible. Then it is possible to be silent. But if you're not so much used to it and you get into dangerous waters emotionally, then it will be really hard. Then it can be hard even for me. Then also me, I will use mantra, remembering Tara. And remembering Tara by being silent is also said to be one of the main practices. And those who have seen my meditation series, the part where I talk about mantra and about jhana also, I think, I was bringing one bhajan there, you could say. I'll just sing the start of it, you'll remember. Bina dhyanam japyam bina, bina puja di vipri, bina balim bina vyasam, etc., etc., saying there's no need for mantra, there's no need for ritual, there's no need for asana, there is no need to eat only good food, there is no need for this and for that and for that. All you have to do is remember Tara and your problem will be gone. So, but remembering Tara means remembering the power of sound, which is the power of silence, ultimately the power of creation. No? In that way, I was trying to find a female form of the word creator. I don't know if any of the native English speaking people can help me, because I couldn't find it. And we do need it, because ultimately, that is the creation that is female. That is created by Kali, that is created by Tara. And the others we will still see in later sessions. So I think that more or less sums up what Tara is about. And the practice, as I said, is quite simple, already known. I don't have to explain. Practicing silence and practicing mantra and Om, of course. And using that whenever the emotions become a little bit disturbed. I mean, a little bit, maybe is only a little bit, but when they become disturbed, okay, we can use this so that we can remain on a calm water surface where everything is clear. No, it's no problem to have a little problem. That is only natural. But when people get really stuck in frequent negative emotion for longer periods of time, that is where they should really step up their game, and probably also get some help, maybe here and there, and use mantra then, I think, in a more serious way. And I also see that with the people who come here for healing, I can help everybody to some degree, but if they are emotionally disturbed and they can start using a mantra after the healing, then they have such a better chance to succeed in getting rid of that negative emotional state and to really become quite stable. That is my experience with myself, and that is definitely also my experience with people. So I could go on a long time, but I don't want to make these things also too long, but maybe there are some questions. Well, there's no saying, because it's depending on what works, first of all. No? The ultimate way to do this, in the sense of being still at a stage where you're doing something, no? There's a stage beyond that where you are not doing anything, it's just happening, but that is a state of deep meditation. But the stage just prior to that is where there is no more difference between you as the observer, as consciousness, and the mantra, and not even anything different with the doing of the mantra or the meditation. No? Where the meditator, the object of the meditation, and the meditating, all three, they become one thing, and they are no longer separated from each other. But that is something which you cannot say, okay, sit down and do it. It doesn't work like that. So whichever path you follow to go there, it may be different from one person to another. No? I think in the beginning of your practice, when the concentration is maybe not so good, then I would suggest to fully focus on the mantra and forget about doing anything else. No? Until you feel, okay, thoughts are under control and only the mantra is there. No? And then you can even visualize the mantra to keep more focused, or synchronize it with your breathing, visualize something else along with it, like the deity of the mantra or the yantra of the mantra, engaging two sides of the brain. I mean, that's that whole process of dharana where, slowly you get to the point where you feel, okay, now there's no more thoughts. The moment you think that, you're again in problem. But no, you can feel, okay, I'm there. Then at that point is the time to do what you were talking about, I think. That is to separate your consciousness from the mantra, which means that the mantra is being played, let's say, by mind, and you are just observing it. And you are quite aware of that neutral position that you have. No? This neutrality, in a way, can also help you very much in the beginning. That is also possible. So you see, many different possibilities are there. No? To first, before you start the mantra, to be silent inside if you can. And really, just witness. That's very good, because then you're already keeping yourself silent. You're keeping those thoughts out, and then you're putting the mantra there, so it's going to be much more easy to not have any thoughts. But for most people, that doesn't work, so they need to take hold of the mantra quite firmly, and then slowly release that hold. That's where the visualization, maybe it goes. That's where the mala, maybe it goes for counting. That's maybe where the synchronization with breath goes. So that you come to a very simple thing, just a mantra, and you observing it. And then there will come a point, but that's almost on the level of, something which happens, something which is not something you can do, where you and the mantra become one. And this is a very strange thing in a way, because that awareness of your awareness, which is the main thing, it is there, and the mantra is also there, and they are one. And that is in a way strange, because the one is silent and the other one is talking, let's say, is doing the mantra. But still, they can be together as one. I cannot explain it. It's beyond what we can understand with the mind. But that is where then, deeper meditation rapidly follows, I would say, if that happens. Because then you're no more aware of meditating. As long as there is you and the mantra going on, you're still aware of what you are doing. You're still in the doership. So once you go beyond the doership, then they become one. And then very easily you go inside. And then, as I said, what happens there, nobody can say. I mean, you can write books about it, but it's anyhow different for most people. And depending on then what comes up from the subconscious mind. Going from whatever is needed to keep the concentration. That's the first task. No? So if you have to stand on your head for that, okay, it's fine. Going back then to the most simple form possible, because the most simple means the most calm, the most peaceful, the least doership, the least stress in the whole thing, like a pure being, but with a mantra. And as I said, at that moment, the mantra and you cannot say the difference. But there's so many things. I mean, one of the things I also like doing, especially maybe when working with a new mantra, but still, is to kind of taste the energy of the mantra. That is also a beautiful thing. Where you really go into the mantra and you don't go very fast maybe. And these sounds in your mind, you kind of hear them or listen to them and like feel them vibrate, you know? And feel the energy of it. That is also, for me, if the mantra is new, very nice way to get into it, let's say. All kinds of ways. Whatever allows you to be concentrated, not having many thoughts. I mean, something can pop up, but not too much. That is what works. And then when that works for some time, you just make it more calm, more simple. And especially you make yourself more relaxed about it. Like you just enjoy it in the moment. Yeah, when you go into that stage, then it doesn't matter how long you meditate. No? As long as you're still struggling with the concentration, then half of you is maybe thinking, oh, when is it finished? No? When will the alarm clock go off, or when will the mala be done, or But once you get that peaceful togetherness with the mantra, and you're really happy there, then it doesn't matter. A lot of people try to get into this concentration game before they are properly relaxed. Many people actually are not ready to do real mantra meditation and really be concentrated. They first need relaxation in the body, in the energy with the breath, and and then in the mind, in the senses. So that as a meditation teacher, let's say, is something to always take into account, that these different people are there, which makes it very hard to kind of create a sequence which will work for everybody. No? That may be the same in asana practice to some degree also, but I think with asana it's still quite possible to create a sequence which is maybe not too hard, no? Not too difficult, and which everybody can do and feel good about. But in meditation, no. You will have such a variety of people in front of you. So the only thing you can do is let them experience the different things that they might then themselves use at home and experience, and then feel, okay, this works for me now. Now I am concentrated. Okay, then it doesn't matter how. That maybe that then comes later. No? For example, the use of a mala. In the beginning, when people are learning to meditate, the use of a mala is very advisable, because otherwise they're always finding some excuse to stop too fast. So it's a little ego game to say, okay, I will do 3 malas today, and then, okay, you do those 3 malas. But once your meditation starts coming to that point where, you are really at one with it, and it becomes something relaxed, then it's better to drop the mala. Because the mala again keeps you outside, right? In your fingers. And it creates, in a way, a little bit of distraction and stops you from going inside. So one teacher I had, Katya Babe, he used to say, it is not because the mala stops that the mantra has to stop. You can use the mala, however many malas you have decided to do, and then you come to the last one, and then you drop it and you continue the mantra. For however much time is comfortable, or you feel like doing. And there you will see, if you do this, and you have the habit of doing it with the mala, you will see you will get deeper in your meditation without the mala. But that doesn't mean the mala is wrong. For some people, as I said, it's very much needed. Even that use of the fingertips has been shown to improve concentration, because there are so many nerves there, and to work with these fingertips is actually helping people to concentrate. So it all depends where you are and which day it is also. No? Some days are more stressful, some are less. So you can also adapt your practice to that. If you have only 15 minutes, 20 minutes, then okay, yeah, you need something quite fixed. No? But once you start meditating a little bit longer times, then there comes like a natural flow where you are quite well feeling, oh, now I'm already like beyond that concentration problem. Okay, let's drop the mala and enjoy the ride. No? When you have more time, you can do it like that. When there is less time, then you need to decide in advance what you are going to do. Makes it a little bit less practical in a way. But again, that sort of well-defined sequence to start with is something people need when they are learning to meditate. That's why in that series I make these overviews of, you do 5 minutes of this and 3 minutes of that and 10 minutes of that, because that's what people need, not because it's actually the right thing to do. It's much better to feel your way into this. And the only thing you really need is this little bit of understanding, relaxation, concentration, soft concentration, and then deep meditation if grace is there. If we want to affect the energy body, then the sound has to be out loud. This is the first thing. Energy body relates to your breath, right? So it has to come through your breathing, which means the sound has to be loud, which is not the best way to use a mantra, because the energy body, it changes very rapidly. So even if with a mantra you can change that energy body, maybe also of another person, for example, then 1 minute later already it can change back to its original state and nothing much has happened. So the best way is to use it inside, and there the energy that I'm talking about is the energy of the subconscious mind. Well, also of the conscious mind, but primarily what we try to do in mantra is to work with the subconscious mind, where all these also unpleasant emotions find their origin, of course. Where all those triggers are there from our past, and somebody triggers them and then we feel unhappy. So to change that energy, which is the energy of your soul, really, is the purpose of mantra. I always like to compare the soul to like a galaxy, in the sense that, okay, the soul is very small. It's, according to Vedic scripture, about the size of a thumb. I don't know if you people heard that before. But so the soul is about this big. But it has this galaxy inside, with which I mean that there are many parts in it. Because it's the entire memory of your whole existence from so many lives, right? So it has many, many star systems and, and in some star systems, I'm sure they are only like happy memories and beautiful stories and, nice energies. But then in some other parts, there may be these more disturbed places where the energy really is vibrating in an unhappy way, where there is, for example, a tension called anger, and when it is triggered, boom, the whole thing will like create a fire and light up your mind and light up your gross energy body, the pranic body, and even then affect your neurotransmitters, and you'll be angry. No? So that is where we try to work with the mantra. That is where a knot, let's say, can become a little more loose. Or a knot where you already have been working, because there is obviously also other ways to work with your deeper emotions. If through other work there the knot is already a little bit loosened, then maybe the mantra can completely make it open up and resolve that issue. And of course also deep meditation can do that, because in deep meditation we watch this galaxy from the inside. In our conscious life, we experience this galaxy from the outside, let's say. We feel things coming out of it. But only when they come out, we experience them and we are aware of them. But in deep meditation, we really travel through all these star systems and whatever is there to the very center, where is the self, and then from there we look and use that power of the self to unravel these knots and solve these past crimes and mysteries and whatever is there. And also, of course, not just see our own nonsense there, if I may call it like that, but also see essential truths like the Mahavidyas that we have been talking about. Because this is very important to understand. There is the most essential truth of the self, which is the basis of yoga, which is the basis of Advaita Vedanta. But once we get into manifestation, there are also these other truths that are there that can be seen by buddhi, by the cosmic intellect, when we are in deep meditation, or maybe also when we can be really silent, and then intuition will bring it up. Then we will truly feel something about maybe a person to heal, which does not come from our reasoning, from our rational mind, from I don't know, some similar case we had, or no, it'll just come and we just know it is true. We will truly know it. That is why dhyana, meditation, is called to see. Actually, dhyana means to see, to know. And so in that way, we will know it. So these are all the different ways to work with that. And that is the only work which is really essential. All other things that we do with the body, with the energy, with our thinking process, they are all quite fleeting and secondary. I'm not saying they are not needed. We need to work on all levels, but the most essential level is that of our soul. And so there we have to be patient, understanding that we have limited impact. Actually, it's beyond consciousness, or our consciousness. It's subconscious, so we can only work with it indirectly, let's say. And this we do with mantra, with meditation, with healing maybe also, and of course then also with life. Let's take a typical example of one of those things which may be there in some people is fear of heights, or fear of spiders, or some other little bit absurd kind of fear, but which is still extremely strong in a person. So then also in life, a person who has fear of heights and who says, well, I might as well spend my holiday climbing mountains so that I'm a little bit working with that, is doing the right thing. Is challenging those fears. And maybe, he'll be very careful in the mountains and not do what other people are doing. But still, whatever he is doing, he's trying to push his limits, he's trying to challenge them. And in that way, sure, also he will change. So all these ways are there. And I would say that a combination of all these, again, works best. This really should not be underestimated. It's really one of the main tools, and that is what Tara teaches us. Ein, Ong, Ring, Kring, Hum, Fat. So, well, this is the mantra that Harish Johari was giving for Tara. I must honestly say that I have never used it. It doesn't happen a lot that I give a mantra which I don't use, but okay, we all follow our paths. But that's the one that he is giving, and all this knowledge of Mahavidyas comes from him. So the mantra, you get along with it. Tara in Buddhism is, you could say, the female form of Buddha, and stands as high as Buddha. Okay, and you could say the same about Tara in Hinduism, being anyhow Parvati, Gauri, Shakti, you could say the same, but that's about it. Apart from that, in what Tara in Buddhism means, it is a very different story from what Tara here in Hinduism means. And somehow, I guess, there must be some relationship, but it's totally gone, I would say, because the Tara in Buddhism also takes many different forms. You have the white Tara, you have the green Tara, you have many different kinds who have different functions in Buddhism. And of course, they also are not really seen as goddesses or Buddha not as a god, but that's again a different thing. So, but no, I should have said that in the very beginning because it's an obvious question. But so no, they don't relate in any direct way. Well, it's a good question because it allows me also to point out something else about the use of the word demonic. In traditional Indian view, we talk about humans and demons, and deities or the divine. So I remember a talk with Harish Johari about it, where I was asking him if the demons had a separate existence, meaning an existence separate from the divine. And his answer was, and that was for me so very, literally enlightening in a way, was that no, the demons, they may think that, but even they cannot exist without the divine inside. They may think that. They may so much believe in their human nature, you could say, that they think that they are demons. But actually, they have the divine inside. And this divine inside, to make it a little bit more clear whether we're talking about ourselves or about demons, is the unmanifested, pure conscious energy that is the source of all manifestation, which is precisely why also the demons cannot exist without it, and also we cannot exist without it. It's a matter, you could say, also of definition. When people, a little moment, maybe just for a few seconds, can hold the mind still, can just be silent, then that divine is experienced, and that divine can then be also, let's say, defined. Defined as being totally pure. Defined as being that white theater screen which remains white whatever blood and tears and kisses are coming on the screen in the movie, the screen is always remaining pure and white. So same way inside of us, just by holding still, we can experience that and define it then as that, because let's be clear, when we talk, we use words. These words only have meaning because of our own definition of it. No? So then, to say that spark of the divine, that pure consciousness and that pure energy which are one, inside of you, that you can experience when you hold the mind still, that is without form. We cannot say it is big or small, we cannot say it is old or young, we cannot say it is green or blue or anything like that. It is without form. And then we can recognize this same pure beingness, this same divine in each and everything. At least in each and everything which, lives. For things which don't live is a little more difficult, but let's forget about that for the moment. So then I say, okay, behind the eyes of the pig, you see also yourself. That same pure consciousness, that same pure beingness, that same pure energy, you see it in anybody's eyes. And so then you can say, okay, that is God. That's a matter of definition. The word God is meaningless. It's actually a word that comes from an old German god who was named God. Did you know that? The origin of the word God is there. There was a god named God, next to so many other gods with other names. Somehow, in the language, that name became dominant and became the name for all gods. And then we even made a goddess for the female form of the divine. But so, that is just a word that's, needed somehow, because we do not have the ability to go beyond saying God is energized consciousness or conscious energy. Because those two things we can experience. When we hold still for a second or two, we are still aware. That is the part which is consciousness. And when we hold still for a moment or two, or maybe a little longer, if possible, we experience that awareness as being happy, peacefully happy, blissful. That's what we call it. So that is the energy of it. If we can experience it as blissful, it must have some energy. It must have some quality. No? So that combination of conscious energy, energized consciousness is the best we can come up with. But since that's difficult, like in talking, we just say God. Or the self, or the Buddha nature, as the Buddhists prefer. They don't talk about gods, they talk about the Buddha nature which is in everything and everyone. And so whichever way, even the humanists, they call it something similar than the Buddhists actually, this human nature. So that is the divine which is inside each and every one, each and everything. You cannot even think about something, or it must be there by definition, even for non-living things. But let's not go into that because that's very complicated to explain. But whatever is there which is alive, at least we can see that this is there and define that as the divine. And then, okay, when we start thinking about that and imagine that before manifestation there must have been something unmanifested, so that must be that same divine, pure, conscious energy which must have been there. And then we can imagine how that manifests. And it doesn't manifest, let's say, in one go from unmanifested, pure, conscious energy up to, McDonald's. It goes in phases, and in these phases then we can see essential qualities emerge from this divine. And these essential qualities we can then again name as Lakshmi for generosity, or Hanuman for courage, or Shiva for asceticism, or whichever, knowing that they are all one. This is also in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is showing himself in all his forms, which are all the forms known of the divine. So that is, then, well, not just our story, this is also just how things work. These essential energies, we talk about it quite a lot in Tantra, because we try to cooperate with them. And that is why then we make rituals, so that we can get the interest of these energies, or of some other energies which are in support of these energies. And then we can really say, okay, I'm starting to work with Kali now because I need that energy. Or I start to work with Tara, because I need that energy. Because what I said before about this song, Bina Dhyanam Japyam Binal, you don't need anything. You just need to remember that name and be silent. That is, of course, one thing, but that does not mean that there are no pujas for Tara. There's still possibility to also work with Tara in that way, and to use the mantra of Tara, as I have said. Yes. But the main thing, anyhow, will be to become a master of your own emotional pond, and keep those waves down, by perfecting your connection to the divine and perfecting your ability to be silent inside. It's the best answer to any of these things. Yeah. Well, in Sanskrit, we talk about Devata, and in English, we then translate this as gods and goddesses, but that is actually not very correct. That is better to be translated as divine energy. And the thing with energy is that it always takes a certain form. So the formless, unmanifested energy, when it manifests in different forms, which are different aspects of itself. Aspects which are actually not there in the original divine. You cannot say the self is generous. The self has nothing to do with generosity. But when the self manifests, because of its inherent peace, it can only be generous, because what else could it be? It can only be nice, it can only be courageous, it can only be non-attached. These are things, which are actually all properties of the divine self, which we could name, but once we truly understand what is the nature of the divine self, then these words are useless. Because, let's say, there's no alternative. No? If we say the divine is happy, well, that would kind of mean that it could also be unhappy, right? But that's precisely it. It is beyond happiness and happiness, so it's always happy. But it's hard to talk about, you understand? Because we have to go beyond duality. But words, mind, thoughts are only about duality. Bigger and smaller and brighter and more dark, and that's all mind knows. So very hard to talk about it. Oh yes, very much. Some of the best teachers, they never say anything. They just keep silent. And some have been known in India, and they had a huge number of students. And some of these students became very good teachers with lots of things to say, actually. But their original teachers, they were never saying anything. People were welcome to come and sit with them in silence, that's all. And still, through that silence, so much was learned. Because that's where the intuition comes, where the knowing comes. The knowing does not come from reasoning. I'm not saying it has no place, but the real knowing, it does not come from reasoning, from the typical way in which mind jumps from one thing to another, association. This, is useful in some ways, mostly in practical ways. But to know really something essential, silence is needed. Pure awareness. And then we see it. And we know it. And so this practice of silence is the main thing. The whole meditation process is actually meant to bring you to that. Where you are quiet, which means you don't ask questions anymore. Then you know the answers without asking the question. Or if somebody else comes and asks the question, you know the answer. Because you're not asking the question. You're not questioning anything. You're accepting everything for what it is. And that is why you can see it as it is. Why you can know it as it is. Interesting. Keeps life interesting. Then many new things we can learn. I remember a time when I was, like many people I think in the West now, very much involved with Advaita Vedanta and with the pure self and, all that. And it became boring after a while, you can say. Like, I got it, yeah? And only then when somehow my path changed and I started working more with energy of things, then again it became interesting. Because then there were so many other things to discover.